Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Ted, and today I'm hanging out with
Ryan,
Mark,
Dave.
And today we're going to do another issue of What Does Your Race Say About You? And we're talking Goliath.
Before we get to that, head to the description below where you can learn how to game with Nerdarchy as well as get RPG tips from us.
So the Goliath is in the Elemental Companion.
It is.
We're lucky enough to have a couple printed copies here for view for our table.
so what page is it in the official Elemental Companion that you got through Drive Through RPG?
Page 10.
And we can even put the link of that into the description below, so this way if you wanted to get your own printed copy on the print on demand, you can totally do that.
It's a thing. So Goliath is, I think it was introduced in 4th edition.
I believe so.
They kind of existed because they're in a way a version of the half giant that existed in 3rd edition. Even.
Well, I don't know if they were introduced in 3rd edition.
No,
as
they were totally
Races of Stone.
Right.
They were totally in 3rd edition as well.
Races of Stone.
Yeah, 3.5, 3.5.
Yeah, it was the Races of Stone book.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've never really had an affinity for the race as is. Like I like the way the race is designed, but I kind of like them in the sense that, like, if I want to play like a half ogre, I'd be like, can I play a half ogre and use the Goliath?
Yeah.
Right.
Or, I mean, there's also been things, too, for Dark Sun. They were like, so half giants? For Athasian half giants? They just said, all right, that's just a Goliath, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So they made that sort of work as well.
But the Goliaths as presented here are basically like, mountain men.
Right.
Yeah. Like, very austere, very stoic, like, very self-sufficient mountain men. As you would have to be if you lived in a hostile region.
Well, yeah, it's even like, kind of weird, and not weird, but they're kind of like survivalist and brutal in the sense that if you can't pull your weight in the tribe or the clan, that's it.
You're out.
You're out. They just
See you
leave
later.
you, and you have to, you have to figure out how to make it work. They also, as depicted here, have also a very strong sense of fair play. So, while maybe it's not like a litigious society, but like there's the unspoken rules of how they operate.
Right, they've got a
codes.
structure, they've got an order, they got codes.
Yeah.
So like they're more of a lawful race.
honorable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like there aren't many races that gear towards lawful neutral. Like usually you're going somewhere in the sort of good evil spectrum. Like bending towards neutral is a pretty rare thing, especially when you get into things that are like PC race playable.
Right.
It's like a bent towards neutrality is pretty without a good evil axis is almost kind of alien in a way when you think about it.
I mean, it's hard for us to grasp, given all the other options that are out there and how they're presented. It's definitely a different mindset.
Yeah.
As especially as a whole race.
Yeah. So like I don't know, they could be like pillagers that like might makes right could be a way to go about it, but it's just like they formally announce like your town is under siege. You can either give us the bounty onto us, or we will beset ourselves upon you. You have the option of surrendering your goods now without bloodshed,
right.
or we will raid you upon the morrow.
Well,
We'll come
when you're
rolling down the
7
mountain.
to 8 feet tall and possibly 340 pounds. Your way is pretty much the way of law.
Yeah, your way is the highway.
Is it 2 strength, 1 con, or
2 strength,
Strength, 1 con.
yeah, plus 2 the strength, plus 1 the
So
constitution.
I mean that's the ability to walk in there as a barbarian or a fighter with a 16 strength, 16 con. And that's a pretty pretty tall order to go up against.
a substantial threat. Yeah, absolutely.
I believe it's pretty much the only race we're really presented with from all the official sources right now that I consider like a little more primitive. Where like sure the half orc, but the half orc really isn't a race; it's an amalgamation of 2 races.
Right.
Yeah. And they're going to be in fringes of one of the 2 societies more
Right.
than likely.
It's
Whereas
either-
this,
It's either going to be more socialized by being within a human city, or it's going to be more barbaric by being with orcs and being essentially brutalized for not being a full orc.
Yeah, I guess the next closest might be like the wood elf, but even they, like, even I feel like a lot of times the wood elves are connected to the other branches of elven society. So like, even though they are a little less civilized than high elves, they still interact. Where these guys are kind of like, they're living out on a mountain by themselves, and they're might makes right. They're highly competitive. Yeah, so, and that's the other aspect that's kind of interesting about your Goliath as presented here, is they introduce as a part of their way of life is competition in games. Where, I mean, obviously that's going to be in other races as well, but like it's more pronounced with the Goliath.
It really, culturally, I really think of just like sort of a Norseman sort of idea too, because they had a pretty ordered structure for society, and like this person was beneath this person was beneath this person, and your Thane, locally would decide what you had. Things like Weregild and things like that, where if somebody did harm to someone, then the Thane would decide, well, you owe this person this much restitution, or could assign somebody to become a slave or a servant of somebody else. So that's kind of where I think of the sort of order in society could go, and there is certainly a level of brutality that happens in sort of that level of Nordic culture that could happen.
So the question is, like, in your game, how would you play or portray a Goliath character? Obviously, I feel like the way to portray them, like if you decide that you're going to play like a stereotypical Goliath, would be a really interesting dynamic in the party, because you're kind of like this massive presence, not just in size, but in the way you go about things.
Being on a mountainside, you're going to make use of whatever is around you. So kind of, I don't know where I saw it, but as opposed to being used to sitting in chairs, like they might just hunch or like crouch, crouch down to quote unquote relax. So you might just have them sitting there, they're on their feet, but they compact themselves, and that's how they might relax. What was that?
Just squat down.
Yeah, squat. Yeah. I couldn't think of the so they might squat. So you might have someone who, all right, well, when the party decides to break or set camp or whatever have you, if they've got nothing to do, they might just sit there and be observant. I would take it that unless there's something important for them to say, they're probably not going to be talking. They're more stoic and reserved. But when they actually do say something, if they're not being paid attention to, they're going to raise a stink about it, because it's like, look, I'm talking here. Well, why aren't you listening?
They'll have a booming voice, so it'd be hard to ignore them. Because,
right.
I mean, something that's 7-8 feet tall, like, probably is just loud.
And if you're on the mountains, you're used to projecting. I mean, it says that they're
like Tyson.
Well, if you're used to being on the mountain,
he's not 8 foot tall though.
If you're used to being on the mountain at 20,000 feet, you need to really get that voice out there to be heard.
Unless you're afraid of avalanches. Just saying, they might use their inside voice sometime. Yeah.
So using your example though, I don't actually think like making camp is a good example. The good example is, you're at the party and you're at the tavern, and he crouches down on his haunches instead of sitting in one of the chairs that are all around him.
Yeah. Well, or
he drags over a log or something that's meant to go in the fire.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he might sit on a chair, and if it's a ruddy tavern, it might break.
Yeah.
He's not used to that kind of stuff. He's not certain. What's the etiquette. Can it handle something of his mass?
So if you want to play an outsider character, it's a very solid character.
You could also throw some flavor in it by like making him something like a barbarian or fighter mixed with like a warlock or something like that, or a sorcerer. I think that would be cool, because it adds that air of like you're in your tribe and they're used to people being one particular way. Then you got this one dude who's like, he's big like us, he can fight like us, but he also does this other stuff that's kind of weird to them, you know.
Use the storm sorcerer.
Yeah. Well, except for you could be like the thing that your tribe worships. You know, you could have a pact to it.
Yeah.
With either the storm sorcerer or draconic. Maybe they serve a dragon. Could be a thing that's going on with that, and you had this like blessing bestowed upon you type of idea. I was also thinking about the idea of a paladin or a cleric with this lawful neutral survivalist bent. That's basically like, yeah, you have to survive the combat for me to heal you afterwards. like I'll heal you, but it's only if you've survived until all the
So he
foes have
won't
been
he
dealt
won't,
with.
won't prepare resurrections.
Well, he might even maybe that's still an option, but still the idea of healing like during combat when I could be attacking doesn't
absolutely,
happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you may give resurrections, but he has to weigh out whether they gave their all or not.
Yeah, whether it was worth it. Yeah,
That's a cool character choice.
Well,
Character-
You didn't fight hard enough, so I'm not going to heal you.
yeah.
The other idea off of the sorcerer or the warlock type character is, you know, maybe they're shunned and driven from their tribe because of their superstition.
Yeah.
You know, so if they are more primitive, like if you start hurling magic and using magic, you know, that might be enough to be like, yeah, this is a little weird. You got to go. This is a bad omen.
Yeah. You know, I feel like too, it came up in the discussion, the idea of a Goliath wizard, like outcast, and the idea that he found the spell book off of it. So he's outcast from his tribe, and then he finds a frozen, petrified, dead wizard because it's in the Arctic.
Sounds a lot like a character build we did.
Yeah, it was the uncommon character build. So the idea of a Goliath wizard, that could be a way about things.
Well, yeah, you know, with their survival of the fittest, basically, if you're lamed or there's something wrong with you, the tribe will just leave you, and really, that's like the easiest way to determine why you're an adventurer, why you left home. You didn't really leave home. Home left you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the idea of you were good at things, but not things that the tribe valued, or you know, you excelled at things that wasn't strength, which is the main thing. The last tribe.
you know, following the RP that's in the book, you know, you might just be like, well, I'm clanless, and you know, I don't know if there's a name for that for Goliath, but they might take that, or that character might go that route.
And like, so here's the other thing, like, so your Goliath is interacting with the party. Do they then kind of impose that on the party? Like, you know, you're not performing up to spec. You know, you're clearly lesser. You know, maybe you know, they tried to institute their clan law or tribe law amongst the party hierarchy.
That's very, I think, what's the word I'm looking for? Likely, I guess, because
It's the only thing they know.
you bring what you know.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
maybe
I mean-
with party treasure share divides, it's like based on like the number of things you've killed is like a percentage. Or like just like how much of a presence you were on the battlefield, like determine like, yeah, you get 2 shares, you get 2 shares, you get 1 share, sort of.
Well, and here's like the interesting dynamic, right? So say you were kind of like booted from your tribe or left behind because you couldn't cut the mustard. But now you've got this like Hitler complex, where like you're now like, you know, transferring that onto your companions and your adventurers, you know, even though you in your own mind you kind of like failed. So like you're even, you know, it's kind of like the idea that sometimes the person that's the loudest.
Well, oh no, the best explanation to that is like converts to a religion. Like people that convert to Islam might be extremist, or even people that you could be a late in life Christian and you're more fervent than people that have just grown up in the faith or anything like that. So like that's a more like normalized explanation of it. Like where you're more austere in your religion or your faith. Same thing with your personality of like, oh, so you should be more useful in this tribal structure, this party structure that's kind of your tribe now, and you could try to impose your will on people and kind of test people.
So, yeah, so you could definitely come off almost like, you know, you'd come off kind of like a bully character.
Yeah.
For a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, even though that's not really the way you see it. You know, you're just used to this ordering, and then it would create this dynamic where the party would have to try and like work it out with you and figure it out, that it's just your worldview is kind of alien to theirs.
Yeah, and like it becomes an RP of like that's where you start. That doesn't necessarily anywhere near where you're going to end up like 3-4 sessions in.
And then also like some of the traits that may also transfer over is the idea of you could definitely have that Gimli Legolas type of relationship with another character where you're very competitive and in a friendly way. Whatever you're good at and whatever that person's good at, you're always kind of like competing, or maybe you're looking for that in the party. Like that could also be its own thing that would be kind of comical. Is like you're trying to have that relationship, but no one's interested. Like, so it's like one-sided.
Yeah, like you hurl a javelin that is at max range, so you get disadvantage, but it happens to be the killing blow, and you're like, I killed a foe from the furthest distance, or something like that. So like you just create all
and
these,
everyone's kind of like,
token trophies for yourself kind of situation.
Yeah, pretty much.
You start making like you get tattoos or have like tattoo merit badges basically for the things you've done. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then the other end of that is really just taking all those traits from the Goliath and turning them around, flipping them on their head, and be like totally rejecting them. Because the other thing is like you were left behind because you're the weakest, so maybe you have greater empathy for those that are less capable.
Yeah, or you totally disrespect the idea of the things that your tribe upheld because you have, for whatever reason, you have a broader worldview.
Or you have animosity towards them because
they screwed you.
Yeah.
They shunned you because you weren't as strong as everyone else.
So
now all of a sudden you're the strongest amongst all these people. So are you shun them, or do you like, hey, you know what? Let me help you out.
It kind of goes with that whole mentality of you reject me, therefore I reject everything that is you.
Yeah.
So I think that sums it up. How do you guys play your Goliaths in your game? Is it a prevalent race? I'm really excited to try and play a Goliath in the near future, but I think I might make it my half ogre, to be honest with you. Let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, like, share, and subscribe.
You can tweet at us at Nerdarchy.
You can also find us over on Instagram.
So until next time, stay nerdy.